our special workshop agenda. I'm going to ask for a motion for approval of that agenda, please.
And John, just technically, we can't make a motion since this is a workshop format.
Okay.
So my suggestion would be just to see if there's any comments or concerns with the agenda, but
Okay.
technically we can't make any motions.
All right. Is there any concerns or discussion on the agenda? I see your hand, Jackie. Go ahead.
Well, I sent an email out to everyone. I hope you got it yesterday. I was objecting to adding Eric Walters' presentation about natural gas to this agenda. And I outlined my reasons, but I think the main one is, I think it'll be enough just talking about the causal.
Oh, okay. Did everyone get a chance to see Jackie's email? Okay. So Jackie, we're not going to make any kind of motions. It's just a presentation today. And we're not going to actually discuss it until our meeting. So we won't be making any decisions on that. So you know, that's we can talk about it at our meeting, but we're not making any decisions on that.
At our last meeting, we agreed to send a letter to the City and County Commission saying that we did not support renewing the gas rebate. Was his presentation in any way affecting our timely sending of that letter?
Not at this time. At our meeting, after we hear what he says, we can decide if we still want to keep that going. But at this time, Jackie, our decision to send that letter is still standing.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussions on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll approve the agenda. And if we're ready now, we can go ahead and start our presentation.
And John, maybe it might be helpful for visitors to maybe
Introduce.
Have everyone introduce themselves.
Okay.
So that they know who we are, and then we can hear from them as well. I think,
okay.
Jonas, you were going to kick it off, but maybe it'd be helpful to just have each of the committee members just quickly introduce themselves. And for the causal team, just to let you know, the Citizen Climate Advisory Committee, this is a committee that advises both the city and the county government on climate issues. They don't have the authority to approve anything. What they do have is they can put recommendations forward to both of those bodies through the Joint Water and Climate Policy Board, which is the board that you have presented to in the past. And it was that board that asked that you present to this committee so that they can provide what their recommendation would be after hearing your presentation. So John, I'll turn it over to you if it's helpful. I can call out names.
It would. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, John, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first, and I'll move around the room.
Okay, I'm John Nix. I chair our CCAC committee, and I've been on the committee for this is going on my third year, and I am a energy engineer. My day job is working with our school district, and I have 35 years with the utility side of the business, and we are very, very much environmental oriented. I'm also a fourth generation farmer, and we're very much concerned with making sure that our city and our county and our surrounding areas remained in an environmentally friendly mode.
Thanks, John. I'll go to Jennison Kip.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennison Cersei, and this is my third year on the CCAC committee. And I've been in Gainesville for about 17 years now, working with the university on sustainable community development. And I've done a lot of work on, civic engagement around climate change also. But my background's in environmental economics and environmental engineering, so I'm always trying to kind of bridge those gaps. And I just really, see a lot of power in, although we don't have the authority to make decisions, I think we have a lot of really thoughtful and well-informed experts on this panel. And I'm really hoping we can make some tangible progress with the climate action plan. But thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Jennison. James Fulton.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm James Fulton. I'm a research scientist. I run a diagnostic lab for honeybees and their impact ecologically, economically, and socially. My other interests included development, particularly economic development in underprivileged communities and how ecological impacts can affect that progress.
Great. Thanks, James. Carly Moore.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm excited for the presentation. I'm a PhD student at the University of Florida in geography, where I study global environmental change, and I use geospatial techniques to analyze land cover, climatology, lots of different things in satellite imagery. And I also teach undergraduate students in the geography department and the sustainability program. I guess I'll add, this is my first year on the committee. I'm pretty new.
Thanks, Carly. Terry Harple.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, depending on your time zone. I'm a professor of English at the University of Florida. I principally work in environmental humanities, and I run an initiative at the university called Imagining Climate Change that brings together scientists and humanists to have conversations about environmental futures. This is my first year on the committee.
Thank you, Terry. Adam.
Yeah, hi everyone. So my background, my name is Adam Despang. My background is in the Army, 5 years in the Army Field Artillery. Came back to Florida for MBA for an MBA. And then since my background has been in tying climate change to national security, focusing on policy, education, and outreach. This is my second year on the committee.
Great. Thank you. How about Nathan Fox?
Hey, everybody. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I'm a solar installer. Actually, right now I'm moving some pipe for the company and just sort of listening in as I go. Yeah, my background's, I got degrees in biology and philosophy and environmental science, and did a lot of education in the National Park Service, and decided I wanted to do something literally tangible. So installing panels is a good way to do that. It's my first year on the committee, and I'm super excited to hear what you guys have to say about revolutionizing this city's energy future. So thanks.
Thank you. How about Jackie Davis?
Hi, I'm Jackie Davis. I'm retired from a career as a hospital-based nurse midwife. And I'm working in my retirement as a community activist on climate issues with several groups. And this is my first year in this group. I did see your presentation to the City Commission several months ago. I think it was in August, and I was very impressed with it. I'm looking forward to hearing it again today.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Jackie. I think Danny Cucciara, I think you're the last member.
We got James.
James went earlier,
Okay.
so I think it's just Danny.
Hi, I'm Danny Cucciara. My background is in molecular environmental toxicology, as well as public health and how it relates to environmental health and animal health. I also, am a veteran of 2 conflicts for the Army, and I was in air defense artillery I would say man, but not. And now I'm working as a bioinformaticist at a gene therapy company. And I'm excited to work with all of these fine people to help guide our city and county in environmental issues and climate change.
Thanks, Danny. And we do have, I think there's two other staff in the team meeting here. There's Betsy Riley. She's the sustainability manager for Alachua County. Betsy, you could say anything if you like.
Yep. Hi. That about sums it up. I'm sustainability manager for Alachua County.
And Jenny Ford, she is the City of Gainesville's liaison to this committee.
Thanks so much for coming. Yeah, I'm the environmental coordinator. I do a lot of wetlands permitting, and I'm looking forward to this presentation.
Okay, I think that's it. That leaves the team from CAUSAL. Jonas, if you want to start it off, or Ida, you're welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity. Nice to meet you, all of you, and so many of you. My name is Jonas Pekkanen. I'm working as Chief Business Officer and also interim CEO of CAUSAL now as our founder and CEO. Sonia is on her maternity leave, so I'm wearing two hats at this point in time. Like her, I also have my background in the public administration, like many of us in the company. So we are kind of a spin-out company from the city of Helsinki in a way. In a way, my own tenure at the city was 8 years, long before joining CAUSAL, a bit more than a year ago. Yeah, I can tell more about CAUSAL and our solutions, but maybe Ida and Joni, you want to present yourselves also.
Yeah, thank you. I can go first. So hi, everyone. I'm Ida, working at CAUSAL as the customer success manager. I've been here for a bit over a year, and my tasks include onboarding new customers and also some project management. Besides my work at CAUSAL, I actually, Carly, also did my bachelor's in geography at the University of Helsinki, and now I'm finalizing my master's studies at the University of Helsinki, but it's in environmental change and global sustainability. So hopefully in a couple of months I'll have my papers in my hand. So yeah, but over to you, Joni.
Yes, thank you. My name is Joni Tuomisto. I'm the Chief Science Officer at CAUSAL, and my own background is in environmental health. So I did environmental health research, air pollution, persistent pollutants, and such for almost 30 years. But then I finally made the conclusion that we need more action and not so much new research, because we already know enough to act, but we need to act instead of talk about acting. And I met our CEO Sonia several years back, and we tried to develop these ideas on how to help the city of Helsinki to improve their climate work. And then we ended up developing this platform that was such a good product that we realized that we need to found a company to promote that work and that idea and those tools to other cities as well. And here we are. I'm really impressed about your group. Lots of talent, lots of different kinds of expertise, and great enthusiasm. So I'm really happy that we have the opportunity to present our work to you. But maybe I give the word to Jonas.
Do you see my screen? Is it showing up for
Yes.
you? All right, excellent. So as Joni mentioned, it started with the city of Helsinki, and now we're working with cities, municipalities, regions, counties, state level governments across 3 continents and 8 countries. And the aim is to improve the efficiency, the internal streamline the internal processes for the cities, but especially focus on more accuracy, transparency, and enabling more collaboration in the climate work. These are some of the cities and regions we are working with in the US. You might know St. Paul, Minnesota, and then a smaller one is Carmel in Indiana. Those are the first few ones we are now working with in the States. And there's a quote from Russ Stock, the Chief Resilience Officer at the city of St. Paul, who are just gearing up to launch the platform we've been setting up for them in the last several months. It will be published on the publicly on the St. Paul city web pages within a few weeks, I think. And I guess most of the comments are related to kind of the nature of our product that makes kind of the communications and community engagement benefits. There's the similar problems in each county or city or municipality that we encounter. Whoever we talk to, it's often an issue of making clear for everybody, just internally in terms of managing the work inside the administration as to who's responsible for what and when, but then also being able to communicate all of that to all the stakeholders, and have the right tools in place to be able to track and collect information about the progress of all the different climate actions and the indicators, KPIs related to tracking that progress. Often the reporting is quite insufficient in the sense that it's annual, official reporting back to boards or councils, but then easily the kind of community communications towards the public are the one is the side that easily doesn't have enough resources and gets neglected. And when the data management processes and the kind of continuous workflows aren't facilitated with the right tools, it's even putting together these annual reports can be quite a lot of work for the administration. So what we advocate for is for administrations to move to a more real-time way of working, where you are all the time tracking and all the time making transparent the progress, both for internal purposes, but also then for the public's benefit. So what makes our approach unique is that the dashboard, or what is called the public user interface in this diagram, is public to everybody. So the citizens, the community at large, the politicians, the city employees, they are all using the same dashboard rather than having internal dashboards and tracking separate and then publishing something separate to the community and the public, because that's the side that gets neglected and out of date most easily. There's never enough resources to communicate separately to the community if it's a separate process. So our approach is basically this openness by default, where the city is actually internally using the same dashboards as it is publishing to citizens, researchers, politicians, media, whoever is interested in following the progress. And it's all based on the data platform, the master data repository and management platform that we set up in the beginning. That we populate, we import with all the initial information. Typically, cities and municipalities are tracking their climate work with traditional Excel workbooks, where they have 50 actions, they have 50 rows in that Excel workbook, and then easily several dozen columns for all the different data points, description, who's in charge, what's the budget, and which units are taking part within the administration, and what are the next milestones, and what is the impact assessment, and so on. It gets really difficult really quickly trying to manage and keep all of that up to date. So our solution is such that we take all of that information, and the data platform is then the master data repository. It replaces these Excel workbooks that have been futilely kept up to date until then, and that's where the city and county staff are then assigned different actions or different time series indicate what we call indicators to be assigned to specific people, and those people are then updating the most recent information about the actions or the most recent observations regarding an indicator time series directly onto the master data platform, rather than somebody collecting in those updates and via email and copy pasting them to an Excel workbook and crunching out something every now and then to publish out of that, but rather having everything up to date in real time on the data platform, and whenever updates come in, they are visible on the public dashboard for all the stakeholders. And on the data platform side, you can then also have any internal reporting fields that whatever you need to collect regarding the climate work that is not necessarily showing up on the data platform, but this notion of openness by default is the driver here. So I could show you how it looks in practice. So the public dashboard is always customized for the look and feel of each city or county or region that we work with. This is a generic example of a fictitious the city of Sunnydale. You can have multiple plans. We started working with the climate action plans of cities, but many have now wanted to add their biodiversity or circular economy or other plans and roadmaps onto the same platform, also to be able to show the interlinkage between the actions in different programs. But talking about the climate action plan, there's often a longer term goal by 2040, 2050, and then the actions themselves in some kind of hierarchical structure. So, for example, transportation is found on pretty much every climate action plan that we have run across, and the idea is that you can have some general metrics and indicators, but each action page is where you can follow all the detail related to each action. So you can customize the phases that you want to be tracking all the actions across the program through. Some cities have 5 stages, and you can use your own wording there. And each action is always either, if not completed, it is either running on time or running late. And each action always is assigned to at least one responsible organization in the administration, and has at least one contact person. Not all of the information, or not all cities publish the contact persons on the pages, but it can be useful to do so, to have a point of contact for whoever's interested in finding out more information. And you can have a custom set of any kind of parameters and additional information for each action if you want to show some estimates of the impact or estimates of the budget or information whether an action has already been budgeted for or still waiting for budget approval or whatever data points you want to be tracking. It's very customizable, and then you can have break down each action into tasks, upcoming tasks and milestones and historic ones. And you can assign indicators to at least some of the actions that are quantifiable enough to be able to come up with relevant indicators. So if it's an action about building up the bicycle infrastructure, you might even have two indicators, one for tracking how much is actually being completed, and another one for how much has gone through the planning process. So basically, the idea of having a person in charge of the indicator means that it would be, when the platform is set up, a different person in the planning, somebody in the planning department who is providing the most recent observed data, realized data points for how much has gone through the planning process, and maybe somebody in the public works department separately who is notified automatically by the platform, for example, every 3 months to provide the most recent quarterly data point as to how much has actually been paved or implemented in terms of new miles of bicycle lane. And you can even kind of visualize how the different, what is the correlation of the different indicators that you're tracking, but essentially it's useful to just show the current, have the contact persons, the people in charge of each action, keep the description and the upcoming tasks of the action they are responsible for up to date, so that the community and everybody else can follow kind of what's actually happening, and when that information has been updated, so they know it's up to date. And I could show a few other examples here. This is work we're doing with St. Paul, so they actually have the same example of building out the bicycle network path. So you can have, again, customized categorizations here and so on, but also then embed geospatial information, map information from existing sources if you have such information, for example. A few other examples. This is a city in Australia. We're working with who wanted to distinguish between the actions they are themselves that are impacting the council's own emissions, and the ones that are actions towards reducing emissions from community operations, and here again you can see quite a customized set of things they want to be tracking for each action, objective, impact, and whether it's which scope is it in, and they will be adding costs and savings. But also in this example of building up the photovoltaics, like they are documenting the 10 years history, pictures included of all the installations they've been doing around, kind of telling the whole story and narrative, and going into a lot of detail in doing so. Or for example, for the grants they are giving out, they are publishing here the detailed information of what kind of grants they've been awarding different projects. Those are some other examples.
the look and feel is quite customizable. So you can have various types of visualizations and I could show one example here for the city of Espoo. Here we can also like visualize how the actions for a specific emission category, what actions in the climate action plan are related to a specific emission category. So you can visualize the different emission categories, and then that works as a way to navigate down to the actions that are related to specific subcategories of the emissions. And this is some more examples of implementing map-based information, in this case like power outage risk areas on a map, or wind damage risks, and so on. So you can embed and utilize a lot of existing data that we can pull in from different services, and communicate the whole story to all the stakeholders. So that's maybe Jouni, do you want to add something here at this point?
Well, that was a quite comprehensive description of our Causal Watch platform and its functionalities. This about monitoring and communication and collaboration. Then we also have this Causal Paths, which is more of a scenario tool and for prioritizing and planning actions. So we can also describe that, but when we're thinking of this meeting, we thought that you are mostly interested in this Causal Watch, but we can also talk about Causal Paths if you like. But nothing to add at this moment.
Yeah, this is a view of then all the actions in the action plan, where you can easily filter and search for the actions you're interested in, or just have a look at the actions on the responsibility of a specific unit or department within the administration, or all of the actions, and see how they are doing, how many are running late versus on time, and how many are in different phases, and so on. So making it easy for everybody to follow how the work is actually progressing, and this can be embedded to other sites, other city web pages and such. But maybe a few words here, and we're happy and would be thrilled to answer any questions and make it a bit more conversational if that's possible. So if you have any questions in mind, it would be great to take any questions and feedback you might have.
Jonas, one of the committee members raised their hand. Are you ready for a question or an answer or a question at this moment?
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead, Jackie.
I have a couple questions. I was wondering, since these are open and public information, can you send us the links for several other cities so we could take a look at how other cities are doing it? That's one question. Another question is, when we purchase it, do you come and help us populate it? And how long does that usually take for a city to set up and populate its tracking?
Yeah, definitely. We'll send, and here are some links actually already. We'll provide this presentation to you, so you'll find some links here in the end to example example sites already out there. The one I was showing for St. Paul is not published yet, but there's plenty examples here. For the onboarding process, it depends from case to case. We can sometimes we've done it in a month, but in some instances it's a half a year project, mainly because the city ends up updating the actions and building in the detail into the actions and oftentimes are missing the orphaned actions that they realize once they start putting the data together, that there's actually nobody in charge of some actions. So it makes such issues evident, and sometimes there's a bit of internal work that needs to get done before cities feel comfortable publicly launching it. So we basically take and do help repopulating the site with whatever information is already available. So the list of actions and whatever data related to them is available, like contact persons or impact categorizations or whatever detail is available. We import all of that in addition to taking the brand guidelines and doing the customization of the look and feel and the single sign-on access integration, so it's easy for the staff to log in with their own work credentials.
Thank you.
So I'd say typically 3 months is the answer. Yeah, if like a most typical case, maybe 3-4 months.
And Jonas, did you basically say that we could look at other cities' information as we decide how to set up our initial plan action?
Yes, you could go through these existing live sites and click through. This one is live, for example, and see what kind of actions they have and how they've worded them out and so on.
Okay.
So it's a good idea to go through some examples and also find like what kind of visualizations like this one I was showing from Espoo might work, because we can kind of help you pick and choose from the library of different types of visualizations and widgets as to then what your dashboard would end up looking like.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions?
Yes, John, I have one. This is Terry. This is very impressive, Jonas. It's quite lovely, actually, and I really congratulate you on managing to put all of this data into a format that I think could be parsed by a member of the public, so long as she is curious enough to follow the details. I think I have a question that's kind of a version of Jackie's question, which has to do to some degree about what's on the back end, and related to how data gets updated. Is typically for the cities where you have installed this software, is there an office or a team charged with plugging the data into the appropriate parts of the system, or is it something that's distributed across different parties of responsibility? What I mean, in other words, is there, after you're done and you've installed and we've set it up and it's been released, is typically a city then assigns somebody whose job it is to keep causal updated and takes feedback from different members and different teams of the city administration or the other responsible parties? Or is it simple enough that the different responsible parties can themselves keep track of their area of responsibility by entering the data through some sort of user interface where the data gets dumped in and then spread to the right places on the causal website?
Yeah, good question. So the individual people in charge of individual actions are directly updating the actions they're responsible for. So individual employees of the different departments throughout the administration are the ones providing updates after everything is up and running. So typically we work rather intensively for the first weeks when setting up the platform with the climate team or sustainability team to get everything up and running, all the information that exists onto the platform. But then once everything is set up and we've trained first those admin users, those sustainability staff, they can then add new actions and add new what we call contact persons, those people throughout the city organization or the administration who are in charge of individual actions, and they can assign those people to be in charge of individual actions. So when an admin user can of course edit from the back end any information, but then when an individual staff member from say the public works department or the procurement office of the city signs in, he or she can only see the one or two actions that he or she is assigned to, and can just edit those details.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful. Thanks.
So what would you say, Jonah, would be the critical factor for success? Is it updating data in a timely manner, and once the indicators are set up? In most cities, what makes it work and what makes it not succeed in terms of its success? What is there one critical area that has to be done? It's usually data update.
Yeah, I would one important or useful finding we've had is that if you tie the data update that you want the individual staff members in charge of all the actions to do to some kind of annual cycle, it makes it easier. So if there's like interim quarterly workshops for the community or reporting to this CCAC, for example, or then maybe once a year to the board or the council and so on. So kind of making those as reasons for reminding other people that, hey, now maybe this week might be a good idea to check that your actions are up to date, since there'll be people looking at this dashboard, especially next week. Of course, people will be looking at it every day, but it's just a psychological thing to build kind of these internal checkpoints that people get around to updating the information. Because you can as admin, and when we set up the platform, we can set it up with you to whatever interval of reminders. So do you want people to get reminded every 2 months or every 3 months or every 4 months to update the actions? But that's not as efficient as to sending all of them an update saying that, hey, we're doing an event or workshop next week. So you might want to check that your actions are up to date.
That makes, yes, that would make a lot of sense to have a timely periodic update and had it done at a certain time. Jackie, I see your hand.
Yes, I was just wondering if we go with this after the initial setup, if like a year later we needed some support, do you provide ongoing support?
Yeah, the platform is offered as a subscription service. So we are there all the time. It's an ongoing subscription. That means that we're there to get feedback and do any fixes along the way, and of course provide assistance and technical support all the time. And we would like to check in and get feedback at least quarterly from everybody using all our customers, and we aggregate all of that feedback and we develop the platform further all the time. So we are implementing new features and additions to the platform on a continuous basis, and that's why it's important for us to get that feedback also, to know which features are needed and useful for the customers at any point in time.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there other questions?
John, just see if there's any questions from the panelists. Otherwise, we do have staff that are that may have some questions. I can see at least one hand coming from the attendees, which are staff members in many cases. So we do have some potential questions from staff, but I wanted to give the committee members the chance to speak first.
Any other questions from our committee members before we go to staff?
Hey there, this is Nathan Fox. Hi. My question was, how much does it cost? What's the subscription? That's all.
Yeah, the subscription annual subscription cost depends on the population size of the region. So we'd have to calculate exactly. I don't remember if we already quoted a price. I would have to go back, but typically, yeah, Jackie, did you?
Well, I saw the
comment there?
presentation in August, and one thing I wanted to mention is this is public domain, correct? And so it's much less expensive than most things because it is a public domain thing. I believe you said 7,000 annually.
Yeah. I might have quoted around that ballpark anyway. So I'd say less than 10,000, even with the current inflation rates. And depends of if there's some specific features that need to be built. I mean, it's a flexible platform, and we are adding functionality if there's something missing that the specific customer needs. But if it's just as such, then the ongoing subscription fees are not much more than that. It's and then there's an implementation cost in the beginning to do the integration with the user management system and the customization of the look and feel and importing the data and doing the training and so on. But that's also less than 10,000.
I could add that you mentioned that this is public domain. So if someone knows about these license issues, it's open source, which is not the same as public domain. So we have the copyright, but we give people kind of freedom to use the code we produce for their own purposes with some limitations. So it's not kind of without limitations. We want that they share that code with others as well, like we do.
Yeah, that makes it easy for us to work with academia and different publicly funded projects to develop the platform further, and also gives, of course, the customers, the administrations we work with, the added safety of knowing that they could set it up with somebody else if we were to like hike our prices too high or something. Some other problems were to occur, but so far cities have been happy to have us host it for them. Of course, that's much easier for any city than having it self-hosted and just taking the source code.
Okay. Any other questions from our committee? Okay, Steve, let's have our attendance questions.
Hi, I just had a couple quick questions about the IT requirements. Is there anything that we as staff will have to provide for data security or anything like that? I'm looking to kind of write up a proposal for our procurement team. I'm just trying to include everything I can. And then is the data hosted by you, or are we responsible for some of like the data storage and whatnot?
Yeah, we host everything and host any personal data in the US and take care of the data security and daily backups and all the technical issues and requirements. So basically the IT departments get off very easy with this solution. So we basically just need their help in approving our site, our platform as a trusted site, so that we can turn on the single sign-on capability. So cities and county staff can sign in with their credentials, and then if it's published, if the platform dashboard is published in the county or city website or any website that the IT department is responsible for, they of course have to do the DNS forwarding for the traffic and such. But those are the only few items we needed just a bit of assistance with from the IT department.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Candace here. I'm with GRU's IT department. I'm a project manager for our organization. Jenny asked part of my question, but another one I have is, since the code is open source, have you guys experienced any problems with security? I know that looking at the code, people can do nefarious things that we'd prefer that they didn't. Do you guys have procedures in place to deal with those kinds of things, especially since the data is hosted by you? I also have a question about accessibility features and whether or not you guys have any.
Yeah. For the accessibility side, we comply with the regulations, American Disabilities Act, etc., and in practice the WCAG 2.1 AA standard is kind of what we comply with, and if there's any, I mean, we take pride in making sure that it's visually easy to use, and if there's any new standards or requirements we fix coming up, we are in charge of fixing those and making sure accessibility is up to par. And for the IT security side, we haven't had any issues. We have or on protocols in place derived from the ISO 27001 standard to suit our circumstances, but everything's all the data is encrypted. So even if the source code is public, that doesn't mean there's any added risk to any of the data.
Right. Candace, did you have any follow-up question, or was that it?
I think that covers most of what I had to ask. A lot of people have asked the other questions that I had. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Okay, I think Chris Nielsen, you had a question?
Hey, yeah, good morning. And good evening. Most of the questions I had have been answered, but I did want to ask two questions. One regarding the responsiveness of the platform for mobile devices. I assume that being web-based, it's designed to respond for mobile devices. And then the second question I have is whether there are any public or private APIs for the data.
Yeah. So the first question was about the responsiveness. It has been decided mobile first. So when you have a smaller screen, it reorganizes the content nicely and works fine on mobile devices. So that's a design principle we adhere to. And for the open data, it's possible to the data available in our API. It's possible to publish that in a city's open data repository, for example. Some cities are doing that.
And one more question. You mentioned single sign-on. Do you all support ADFS or other SAML providers?
Well, that I've only heard our more technical people answer that question before. So I might have to paraphrase here a bit, but my understanding is that would be a bit more complicated with some SAML-based user management or authentication. So if there's a chance to do it with OpenID Connect or Microsoft Azure AD, sign-in is typically what works so far with cities or any other OpenID Connect-based sign-in. But that's not it can we can do some work if necessary, of course.
Okay, I do believe we have an Azure AD, but I have to follow up on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Betsy, you're next.
Yeah, thanks. First, I think this looks very, very cool. And I guess my main question though is, so counties tried, and we are sort of using some of these dashboard style programs. One of our barriers is training needs. So I guess I've got kind of a two-part question. Can you talk about what sort of training you offer to help your customers, and then also in your experience with the other localities, has it worked better to have multiple people trained on this, or to have sort of one person in charge asking for a friend? A sustainability measure.
Was the last part of the question related to whether it makes sense to have one person in charge of a specific action or multiple, or
yeah, more in charge of is there like a key point person, or have you been successful in having multiple leaders around an organization who are all in charge of each of the different pieces?
Well, it makes usually sense to have somebody in the sustainability team or whatever it's called in different situations, to have somebody like be the main point of contact for both towards us and then internal staff members, and somebody, maybe one or two more people who are also well acquainted with the platform to help if there's any so that there's always somebody who can help basically.
Sure.
But I'm not. Was that the question, or did I
Yeah.
misunderstand?
No, yeah, that's part of the question. And so then my second part would be if there's only a few people that are sort of heading the effort, and you talked a little bit about it being a subscription, but do you have ongoing training? So if that person
Yeah.
moved or
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The training was the second part of the question. So typically maybe 1 month into the implementation project, we train the admin users, which is typically maybe 3, 4, 5 people in the organization, so that they know and have the right to edit the structure, add actions, add staff members and assign actions to them and so on. Stuff that only the admin users can do. And that's one session of about 1.5 hours, and the backend edit platform is quite easy to use, so it's not that difficult for them to then kind of be able to do most of the things themselves, and if they need any help, we are always there to provide support, especially to the admin users, who are then the main point of contact for the staff members, what we call contact persons of the individual actions. And for them, maybe 1 month then before the launch of the platform, typically we do together with the admin users, the sustainability people, a joint staff webinar. Again, maybe 1.5 hours to walk them through the whole platform. That's the recorded session, so you can come back to it, or if you missed the session, and so far that has been quite sufficient training to use the platform.
okay, so that sort of answered the second part, which was, in 2 years, if the admin users have moved on or we've brought on a new admin user, I guess they could probably just watch the video, or do you offer sort of ongoing training?
Yeah, they can just go back and watch the video, of course, and have a colleague of theirs, admin user, show the ropes, or of course just schedule a call with us, and we're happy to provide assistance if needed.
Great, thanks.
I don't see other hands. Jenny, I don't know if you had a follow-up question. You still have your hand as marked.
So sorry about that.
No problem. I see Candace, you raised your hand again.
Yeah, I had a couple more questions. I'm sorry. One is regarding, are there any reports that can be run out of the system? Say you're going into a meeting and you wanted to have the dashboard. Is there a way to run a report that would grab multiple screens and not just like say one at a time?
Yeah, as anybody as a general user of the public dashboard, even if you're a researcher or a student or media representative, anybody can export kind of this level of detail as an Excel file from the public side. But then if you want to run a more detailed report, you would do that from the back end, and we're just now adding, based on feedback from cities, different types of custom reports that you can run out as PDFs or spreadsheets for all of the different data, especially if you're using the backend to collect internal reporting fields for some kind of internal reporting purposes. You want to run those out as something you can then process into other reporting channels.
Cool. And my second question was about the input. I know we've talked about that. Is all of it manual input? Does a user have to go in and manually input any of the information, or are there any integrations that can be done with systems that we have on site or other applications?
Yeah. So we have the two-way APIs. So you can pull out the data and use the data in our service, whether you want to publish some of it as open data on an open data portal, or use as inputs to other internal reporting channels and such over the API, and we can of course build data importers to pull in any kind of existing data, energy traffic data, or whatever data you might already have somewhere on the web that is machine readable and with such a license that it's okay to pull that in and show us as indicators on the monitoring side.
I could add to that in practice, the typical kind of data is such that it comes in small pieces and it's not a problem to enter that manually. So basically the person who knows the things best and learns about a new data point, that's the place to put that data directly. So whenever the data comes up, it's entered there, and then it can be used in other places as well. So that's the more practical way of doing it. But of course, it's also possible if you have some data that exists in some Excel file, you can just copy paste those into the indicators or things like that. So there are several different ways of entering the data and also getting the data out of the system.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. One follow-up question. Is there I think you indicated this, but there is, if we had ongoing questions when we're about to enter data or any retrieving data, there's a contact person that you have that we will be able to call at any time. Is that correct?
For the support we have typically the support requests come as emails to us, and we typically respond within a few hours max. And for the individual staff members, it would be the first point of contact would be the admin, the local admin user, who can typically answer like most of the questions if there's something that is unclear. But
Okay.
if it's a technical problem, if there's a glitch in the platform itself, then it would be something for us to fix as soon as we hear of a problem.
Okay. But you said the contact with the question will come through an email?
Yeah, email is the preferred channel for us, because then we can easily forward it to the right person to handle as soon as they see it.
So to follow up on John's question, is the typical administrator an IT person?
No, the admin users would be the sustainability or climate coordinators.
Okay.
Typically, and then the contact persons are just the regular staff members in the different departments of the administration. So it would be just the regular staff members in the different units throughout the city who are using the platform to update if if the action moves to a new phase, or if there's a new updates to the description, or something new action, new task related to the action, and typically they haven't needed any help in doing those updates. But if there's any issues, of course, that the climate coordinator, the admin users can't help them with, then it would be an email to us that if it's something we need to fix, if there's some problem with the platform.
Okay. All right.
Of course, we can provide a phone number if it's needed, but it just hasn't whatever the requirements are. But that's has been going quite smoothly so far with the email ticketing.
Right, John, I had a question, if I can, if we don't have any more questions from the committee or staff. And then there were 2 questions that came from Jeff Shapiro, who's a citizen. So I was gonna just read off those. But the question I had is, for the groups that you've provided this service to, have they all been individual entities like a city or a county, or have you worked with compacts or a collaborative teams of multiple cities or counties? Because to let you know where we are, we're looking at both the city of Gainesville and the county, Alachua County, utilizing this tool together. So I'm just curious if you've had groups come to you where they've been multiple entities. Obviously, we would probably have a representative from the city and the county as your main connections, your administrative team. But I was just curious if you've had similar groups that you've been working with that have multiple jurisdictions.
Yeah, we are working with several regions. This one is in Finland, a region of a dozen or so municipalities. So here you have the actions within each theme for each of the municipalities in the region. So that we do have experience of doing that, and similar work we're doing now in the region of in Ontario with the region of Waterloo, where it's also several municipalities updating the actions that they are each in charge of.
So how is that typically working? Are you going through a single individual that then works and distributes out to each different municipality, or do you have a direct contact with the municipalities? Or basically maybe you set that up at the beginning, and then once it's going, they kind of are entering the data in without you having to continue to work with the different municipalities?
Yeah, we would just, for the municipalities, we would just need in the setup phase,
okay,
the help to make sure we get the single sign-on working, so that the city staff have access to it, and then we do need like a point of contact who is in charge of coordinating that for that group of municipalities, who is then the person we are mostly interacting with, unless any tickets come through from other users.
Okay, I'll go ahead and Jeff, what I'll do, I'll read your question, because I'm not sure if people saw the question or if it just came to me. But Jeff Shapiro's 2 questions. The first one was, this seems to be a hyperactive form of what is being suggested as dashboards for tracking our own city and county status and progress. Where are we toward dashboards? I see. My guess is that question is more directed to staff than it is to the causal team. And we have been integrating the concept of dashboards. I know our IT department in the county has been using dashboards to help assist with information that goes out about disasters. So I guess I'll answer it from a staff side, is I think that is something we'll do. And then his second question is, it seems very intensive for at least the 1 to 6 first months of workup. Can our city and county staff spare the time necessary to come up to speed. And again, that is a question for staff. Obviously, if we move in this direction, that would be something, you know, we would want to do. And I think if we do move in this direction, this is the kind of thing that would get us moving to get this information together, because as of now, you know, the city and the county provide information out separately often. And so this would be a great opportunity potentially to be providing that information in a single location.
Joni, do you want to
Yes, I'd like to comment this workload. It depends on what you compare the work to. So if you are planning to have an ambitious climate plan and you actually want to implement
Joo,
it,
mä lähden välittömästi. Se just lähti tästä, joo.
then
Sorry.
You have to coordinate, and you have to motivate the people, and you have to spread the information, and you have to do all of those things. And of course, that takes time and work and resources. But what we are trying to do with this platform is to help that work so that it's actually lower the workload with ambitious cities. Of course, if you're planning to just write a plan but not implement it, just to make kind of a lip service and pretend that you're doing, then this is extra work. But of course, if you're actually trying to implement all those actions, then you need to coordinate and communicate. And importing the data in the beginning is technically not a big task to do if the data is somewhere already.
All right. Thank you so much, John. I'll turn it back over to you. But yeah, any other follow-up from anyone?
Steve, I'll just mention, you mentioned the dashboarding that the county has done. We have done some dashboarding, but it's, you know, to be frank, rather rudimentary compared to what Causewell is set up to do. Definitely not on the same level or as purpose-driven for the climate actions. So kind of apples to oranges, even though we've dabbled in it.
Thanks, Chris, for clarifying that. I agree. Well, Chris, I'll follow up with you. Do you see an issue with the concept of these dashboards and releasing information like this?
No, I think it looks like a very good and capable platform, to be honest. I have no reservations.
Okay. That sounds good. One of the things that I'm very encouraged about is that it seems to be a platform that allows us to actually take our climate goals and move them into action. And that's the very important part. And just as was just quoted, that if we actually plan to make these goals into action, this is the platform that allows us to actually do that, to move into actions from the goal standpoint. And like anything, it's garbage in is garbage out. So we got to make sure that our inputs, our data inputs, are good and timely. And this platform does seem like a way to move those goals into action in a way that allows us to leverage both the city and the county together. So I'm encouraged about it in terms of moving goals into actions, not just listing goals, but actually moving these goals and keeping track of these goals and communicating these goals in a timely manner that allows everyone to kind of see at the same time what's going on. So thank you again for the presentation. It seems like a tool that we definitely could use. And again, thank you. All right, Steve, are we time-wise, how are we sitting? Are we ready to move into our second part?
we are ready to move on. So just to the Causal and your team, Jonas, I want to thank you all for taking the time to meet with us and taking your evening up to meet with this committee. Just to let you know, this committee, this was a special meeting set up in a time where they normally wouldn't meet, so that we could hear this presentation. They can't take action today, so they're going to talk about this agenda item at their next meeting, which is next Monday night. And at that point, they can write up any recommendations or thoughts they have and make a motion. So what I can do is any information you want to provide, you can send it to me. I know I've been in communication with you through email, so you can send me information. I think there was an ask about some of those links to look at cities. I'll pass that information on to the committee members. And I can also let you know if committee members have any more questions from you by that Monday night. Obviously, you're welcome to come into that meeting through Zoom. We'll have a Zoom link, but it will be, I assume, probably very, very late at night or in the morning for you when we have that meeting, because it's 6:30 or 6 to 8 p.m. on Monday night. But what we can do too is we'll follow up and let you know what actions the group is recommending as well. So again, we want to thank you for the presentation and appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. It was an honor to meet you all.
Well, same here.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Bye.
Okay, we're gonna move to the second part of our agenda, which is the presentation by Eric on GRU's natural gas rebate program. Steve, you want to set that up, or?
Yeah, I just want to ask, does the committee want to take a very short break before starting? Just a minute? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while, and I know probably could use a bathroom break or whatever. So why don't we, it is 12:56. Why don't we come back at 1 o'clock? Is that enough? 4 minutes? That way you might even want to grab something to eat, because I know I haven't eaten yet either. So why don't we everyone take a break? We'll reconvene at 1 o'clock.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah. And Eric, you should be able to share if you want to do that. If you need me to pull up presentation, I can do that as well.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to try and share now just to make sure that it works. Can you see that on your screen?
Not yet.
Oh, wait.
Okay, here it's coming up. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and you see natural gas appliance rebate discussion, January 17th, 2023.
Yes, we do. Yeah, on a full screen. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so it works, and then yeah, when you guys get back, I'll get started.
Okay, sounds great. All right, so we'll take this break. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Okay, I paused the recording while we took a break just to save some space. I've been having trouble putting these videos on the website because of the capacity of them. So I realized I need to make them as short as possible whenever I can. So I've restarted the recording.
Okay. All right, well, we're moving to the second part of our meeting, which is a presentation from Eric Walters on GRU's natural gas rebate programs. Again, Eric asked to talk with us in regard to us sending our letter. Eric, to the Joint Water and Climate Change Commission group, he wanted just to make sure that we had all the information. So this presentation is just to give us more information on the reasons that GRU is doing natural gas appliance rebates. All right, with that, Eric, I'm gonna let you go about your presentation.
Okay, thank you, John. First of all, I want to thank everyone for taking more time out of your busy schedule. I know this is an unnormal time for most of you and a special meeting. But I really did want to kind of have this conversation and discussion with you guys. And let me just start off by saying I know there's a vote to change to send the letter, and I'm not asking you to not send it, right? And it's not even like that's an option at today's meeting. But I just want to make sure that we are having a full conversation around this, because this is an important topic, and this is something that I think we have to have a lot of discussion about. And so before I jump in, there's I'm obviously open to discussion and questions today. And I'll be at next Monday's meeting. We can discuss further there if you'd like. But I really just wanted to put this out there and see if you guys had any questions that I may be able to answer, and just hopefully foster a better understanding and conversation around this topic. And so before I really get started into the slides, I just want to kind of point out an elephant in the room, right? There are members of this community that want to get rid of natural gas at all costs. There be maybe some people on this board that feel that way. We've heard them and we've heard from them, okay? And I'm not claiming to be an expert on convictions or origins or where they come from. I speculate that one of the biggest reasons is rooted in climate change and moving away from fossil fuels. And I want to be the first to say that GRU doesn't disagree with that. Like we're on the same page there. And I'm also going to venture out on a limb and say, it doesn't matter what's in this presentation. It won't change some people's minds, okay? And I'll be honest, I'm not here to change their minds. That's not the goal. What I'm here to do is really start and open up the conversation and make sure that dialogue continues, whatever comes out of that. I'm standing here kind of as the not so new guy anymore, but new role, new guy in this chief sustainability officer. What does that mean? And what does that have to do with natural gas rebates, right? So when I look at that, I've got to look at sustainability and what it means. And so the definition that I'm running off of is really at a high level. It means meeting our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs, right? So we're not robbing the future by consuming all the things and resources today. And really that's built on three pillars. It's environmental impact, and trying to minimize that. The second pillar is economics. There is a cost associated to every decision, and that has to be factored in. And the third is people. And those people, that group includes community, it includes customers, it includes employees. And I really think about it as a three-legged stool, right? Everyone's seen a bar stool. Let's assume it has three legs. To create balance, all those legs must be the same length. I know I hate sitting in a chair where one of the legs is shorter than the other, because you're sitting there rocking the whole time. To me, it's just annoying, right? But to create balance, all three of those legs have to be the same length. If one is shorter, you end up unbalanced. If one is longer, you have the same result. You end up unbalanced. So balance to me equals stability, right? Stability translates into sustainability long-term. And that's my job in a nutshell. It's provide a balanced, sustainable planning approach to the operation of this utility. As the CSO, I cannot ignore either one of those things. I can't ignore the economics, I can't ignore the environment, and I can't ignore the people impact. And I can't ignore those in the same way. I can't hyper-focus on just one, right? So as I'm going through this presentation, that's the backdrop that's coming from that. This presentation is coming from a perspective of a balanced approach that has to factor in environmental stewardship. It has to look at the customer and the impact, right? And to the people. And it also has the cost and financial impact to the utility. So with that, let's run to the first slide. So currently looking at natural gas rebates, GRU currently offers roughly up to $1,600 per home. So when you look at water heaters, up to $500 for the first water heater, $300 for the second. Furnaces is up to $500 for the first and $300 for the second. And again, cooking range and or dryers is roughly $100. But really none of those come about without the water heater. So water heater has to be first, and then all those other things follow on. When you look at the average across our system, the average rebate is about $750. And just that rebate cost is recovered in about 3 years of gas sales. And we'll get a little bit more into the numbers and how we get there later. Federal tax credits are also available for high efficiency water heaters and furnaces. So we're not the only game in town, but there are separate rebates for those. And I'm sure part of the question is, why does GRU offer natural gas rebates? Well, we're looking at it from multiple angles, right? But when you look at natural gas appliances actually lower our peak electrical demand. When we did the estimate, it offsets roughly about 30 megawatts of peak that we see. Ultimately, and we'll see more of an impact in this as we start talking about the integrated resource plan, but lower capital expenditures on generation equipment, lower fuel costs, those kind of things. When you're looking from a customer perspective, natural gas is usually more cost effective for customers than electricity. The direct use of natural gas in appliances is more efficient than the use of natural gas to make electricity to then transport to the customer. So you have about 80% direct use efficiency versus roughly 30% indirect. And we'll get a little more detail of that as well. And there's one thing, additional thing to consider too, is the natural gas system can expand outside of GRU's electric service territory. And the result of that is adding incremental value or revenue to the utility. The electric service territory is pretty much set. It's agreed upon by the PSC, and any deviations outside of that set territory require a lot of negotiations, a lot of approvals, and so forth. But the natural gas and also water, wastewater on a separate note are ways that GRU can expand outside of our electric service territory and then add incremental revenue and thus incremental value to the customers. So when you look at rebate locations, where do we give these rebates? All the residential growth is predominantly outside of our electric territory. So about 54% of new gas customers are outside of our electric service territory. And so those gas sales outside of that electric territory are obviously 100% incremental revenue. It's revenue that we would not have had otherwise. And then 46% of new gas customers are inside GRU's service territory. So again, those sales go to directly offset or supplant GRU electric consumption in those cases. So there's a lot of talk about, CO2 emissions and total environmental impact and that kind of thing. And so when we sat down to do some analysis, we wanted to really look at the whole picture as best we could. Now, is this a final conclusion of holistic carbon efficiency and total impact? Absolutely not. But when you look at my background as an engineer and you look at BTUs and efficiency, there has to be an account for where the energy is served from and how it is generated, right? So looking at GRU's incremental generation fleets, our incremental heat rate or efficiency is roughly 11,000 BTUs per kWh, okay? Sometimes you will look at that number will come through as a decimal, like 11.0, megawatts per kWh or what have you. But in the end, when you look at that efficiency, that's the efficiency of our generating units being able to burn natural gas, convert that natural gas into electrical energy. It's about 31% efficient. Then we have to deliver it to the customers. So when you look at transmission and distribution losses, you're consuming another 2% for that. when you when you add it all up, on average, you're looking at about 29% efficiency that's delivered. Okay. So wanted to compare that a little bit with the straight thermodynamic efficiency. And what I mean by that is just looking at the energy consumption at an appliance itself. So when you look at water heaters, you'll see the thermodynamic efficiency in this column in the blue. And then the holistic is taken into account, well, hey, if we convert this to electric, when we look at these overall carbon efficiencies, there's an impact to those. So some of these are starred, and you'll see the first one is a gas water heater. And again, this is standard efficiency across our service territory. Yes, there are some people that have hyper efficient appliances in all of these areas. But the fact of the matter is they are a minority in the group. It is not the norm. And so when we looked at this, we wanted to look at normal efficiency, right? There are some exceptions, but on average, this is what you see for a thermodynamic efficiency. So again, gas water heaters, you're looking at holistic carbon efficiency is of around 60% across the board. When you look at electric water heaters, if you take just the water heater itself, you're looking at a higher thermodynamic efficiency. But when you factor in all the other portions of taking those same BTUs, burning them in natural gas, and then transporting that electric to the house, that holistic efficiency goes down dramatically. Because again, generation efficiency, age of units, transmission losses, thermal losses in the combustion process, all of those things factor in. When you look at space heating, same kind of idea, natural gas furnace, standard efficiency going across the board. And then heat pumps, your average heat pump AC goes from extremely efficient if you look at it just holistically at the whole. And then you back that out to the holistic carbon efficiency drops dramatically when you're looking at supplying the electricity from the natural gas facility. So about 2/3 of our power is sourced from natural gas right now, is the source, and realizing these numbers change, right, as we move towards renewables. As we implement more renewables in our system, which we're currently working on, then these numbers have less of an effect. But you're still looking at years away before that is really implemented across the board. So still some years for significant change in that. Does that make sense? I'll kind of pause here for any questions before I move on.
Now, this makes sense. I'm just curious though, why we're only discussing CO2 emissions.
Well, typically when we look at this, it's something that's easy to relate and talk about across the board. And so when we look at that, we've kind of settled on CO2 or carbon emissions when we talk about, overall impact. Can we talk about other things? Yeah, we can.
Yes, but with natural gas specifically, methane is the largest concern. And then when it's indoor use, NOx is a big concern for the public health. Even so, is public health costs included in this? What about the overall social cost of methane and carbon?
Yeah, the overall health costs are not included in this. Obviously, we have environmental restrictions on our emissions for that. But the bulk of your natural gas,
there are restrictions? What do you mean?
Say again?
What do you mean it's obvious that there are environmental restrictions?
So on our emissions on our production generating facilities, there are emissions.
There are not indoor regulations for these gases right now. So I'm not sure what you're referring to.
When I am talking about generation versus the actual use of the appliance, correct. When I'm talking about generation of power from a generating facility, there are no indoor regulations, right?
Yeah, the big cost.
So what
the
I am
social cost of carbon is that health impact, and that's not included at all in this.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. And so, but there are environmental emissions and controls that are on our generation units that we meet. When you look at
not indoors where people are experiencing the health components of this.
Correct. We're not in that business of regulating that. So you're right.
Yes, but you're in the business of promoting this, which will impact folks. That's the connection there.
I understand your point.
Thank you.
So when you're looking at the burning of natural gas, the health impacts are not included, right? So we are looking at efficiencies and BTUs because that's the business that we're in. We're in the business of providing BTUs. So when you look at the overall health impact and cost impact, you're right, they are not there because we don't essentially control those in those arenas. But when you look at supplying BTUs from end to end, that is our business. And so that is it. Indoor air regulations and so forth, completely out of my expertise, other than the articles that have popped up lately about regulating and outlawing natural gas stoves and the contributions to asthma and so forth. That's really all that I know. I do understand that methane is the main constituent and is also the main driver of BTUs in natural gas, right? So
as the sustainability officer, is a part of your charge, your role, isn't understanding the impact of your fuel mix on the consumer a part of that?
In a way it is, in a way it isn't. And that seems like a very nebulous answer, but I'll tell you what. The environmental group for the utility that's responsible for making sure that we meet environmental regulations, they all report to me. So I am well aware of the work and the standards that we have as far as being in the business of meeting environmental regulations. I do not espouse to say that I have a complete list of environmental or health impacts that are globally across the world. I know that there are some correlations between the emissions that come out of the generation units and health impacts, but those are largely localized and those are different depending on a lot of different factors. So no, we go with and we manage to the emissions limits that we have because that's what we control. There's a lot of discussion around natural gas and the life cycle management of those, from the drilling of the natural gas, delivery of the pipes, the losses, the emissions that come from that. In reality, I have zero control over those. I have control over what we have within our system. Right now, what we have in our system, when we look at a leak rate and when we do our test, the leaks from our natural gas system of pipes that we own in the ground is less than 0.5%. And so when I look at those emissions rate that we control or those leakage rates that we control, they're very, very low. When I look at the system as a whole, I have a hard time quantifying that because I don't have control over those. But when I look at it holistically from a company that may supply natural gas, it will be in my best interest to lower those leakage rates as much as possible, right? So when I look at this thing as a whole, yes, there are environmental impacts. And so we are in the business and we do very well of meeting our environmental limits, emission standards, whatever it is, we do that. That's what we do every day. And so, you know, the overall global impacts, do I have an answer for that personally? No, I don't think any of us has singular control over that. That is why this is a group discussion.
I'm not looking for your individual, you know, I don't expect you to look no global impacts, but local impacts on our city. You know,
correct.
Will switch to this and now be breathing in these chemicals or these emissions in their homes. And I just want to confirm, because you said a lot there, that you don't see it as a part of your role to be concerned with the health impacts of the people who are switching to this.
That is not what I said. What I said is that is not my expertise to be able to regulate those impacts or know what those limits are, right? I'm in the business of providing BTUs. Are there health impacts? Absolutely. Do I know what those limits are and how they relate to me totally? No, I don't.
Let me interject something here. Eric, do we have state regulations on any indoor environmental concerns?
Not that I know of.
Regulations. There are not indoor regulations right now. And that's a second part, because Eric, you said that y'all do a really good job of meeting those regulations that you have, and that's great. But is that the only time you're going to take action to improve your emission rates, is if there's a regulation pushing you to do so?
That comes from a policy standard or a policy philosophy, but I do know that this utility in the history has taken the stance and through influence of the city commission, has taken the stance of not only meeting, but exceeding in every area possible where those standards are and those emissions limits are. So that's a very nebulous question. I'm going to be very direct in how I answer that. Will I take on the responsibility of applying limits to myself that are not regulated by the state? The answer to that is probably no. I don't know of anyone that does that purposely, right? We can have a discussion and we can make a conscious effort as a community and as a utility through these discussions to say, yes, this is something that's important to us and we want to do that. And we can decide and agree to do that, right? But legally, you're correct. The emission standards set by the state is what we're governing by. We aim to meet or exceed those in every case. So right, as a community, we can decide that. But again, this is part of the discussion that as a community, we've got to understand all the implications of that. And that's the point, to have that discussion.
Eric, I see one more question here from Jennison. Go ahead, Jennison.
Thanks. So these are kind of detailed questions, but just to understand the context of where opportunities are for GRU and for our community. So one of them is about whether GRU has considered or even can offer rebates for the heat pump water heaters, given that they have that superior efficiency, at the end use. And the reason I say can is because I know there's the federal incentive for that. So maybe it's just kind of a not even considered because of the federal incentive. So that was the first question. And the second one, just because I have to leave soon, I'm sorry, but is about when you bring on those new customers who are outside of GRU's electric territory, when you bring on the new natural gas customers for natural gas appliances, what is the cost of added infrastructure? Like, you have to expand the natural gas infrastructure and bring those lines to customers in most cases, I'm assuming, in those new developments that are outside of the territory. So is that factored into the overall economic efficiency when you're looking at that? Thanks, Eric.
Absolutely. Two great questions. Number one, GRU held a heat pump incentive for a while. And this was probably, gosh, I'm reaching here, probably ended probably 6-8 years ago, just because the uptake was so low. It was just, there were very, very few people in the community that were interested in it. And that there was just no uptake or very little of it, right? But that is not to say that that's not an incentive or an opportunity that we're looking at. Part of my job is to look at things that may impact and help us to get to those sustainable things. So part of that is time of use rates or rate structure when we look at those things. Obviously, generation planning, sourcing planning for those things. Other things are community programs or incentive programs that we can put into place to have those, right? And so those are all on the table as options. Have we made a decision whether to bring back heat pumps? No, we haven't. There's some more study that we have to do. And again, there's a cost impact to that as well, because you're giving people money and they are using less of your electricity, right? So the per unit cost effectively goes up there. So what's the right balance of that, and how do we do that, and how do we create that program is a question. So short answer is it an option? Yes. Is it something we're evaluating? Yes. Is there a final answer to that, and when and how? No, there isn't. As far as new customers go, we do include the cost of infrastructure in that. And so those are kind of broken down into different areas or different pieces. And so when we look at the incremental revenue, once we add in the infrastructure cost, that payback comes back, I believe, at five years or so, to recover the incentive and any costs that are associated with installing that. So a lot of the times developers may pay for a portion of the natural gas line that comes in, but generally GRU would pay for most of it. And again, the studies to expand to different areas is, okay, what is our ability to recoup that investment? And so, and I'll get into a little bit more of what the incremental values are for every year and or per year for adding new natural gas customers. But that is factored into the long-term ROI of gaining a new customer.
Thank you. That's helpful.
I saw one more hand, and then we're gonna let Eric continue. Is there another question? Jackie, did you have your hand up?
Only to say, I thought the LEAP program from GRU was an incentive for switching to heat pumps and more efficient electric appliances.
That is a portion of it, but the focus of the LEAP program is really big impacts. So overall weatherization of homes, large appliances and so forth. And some of those things can be heat pumps, and we are looking and working with the customer because there's a limit on how much we spend on those, right? Or can spend per home. But that is one avenue of helping people get more efficient appliances in their home and having that discussion. So you're right, that's a part of it. There are other components that we are considering in addition to the LEAP. So LEAP won't go away, but what other things can we do to help customers, right? So that's part of that discussion as well.
Eric, did you just say that a customer could do a customized incentive where they could use a heat pump?
I don't think I was saying that. I think what I was saying is that we look at the customer and work with them to make sure that we get the biggest bang for the buck of what they're doing as far as weatherization and lowering cost. So I think it's just a bucket of money that they have, and they're kind of going down the list of impacts. So sometimes it is, sorry, my phone's ringing. Sometimes it's just looking at insulation and replacing insulation and windows in the home. That's going to be the biggest bang for the buck or so forth. But you start going down those until you hit that limit, right?
Oh, okay. All right. Why don't you go ahead and let's go through your presentation, and then we'll circle back for more questions.
Okay. Can everyone still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So when we look at natural gas and the impact, so there are financial benefits to the customer. When we look at a GRU customer of natural gas water heater and natural gas furnace, you're looking at savings of roughly $500 per year using traditional electric water heater and standard efficiency heat pumps. And so again, those are average. Is there some that would save less because they've got hyper efficient appliances? Absolutely. But on average, there is a benefit to the customer of roughly $500 a year in less cost as far as providing the energy needs for their home. There are some GRU financial benefits. So when we look at 240 natural gas therms per year that an average customer uses, we basically have an incremental net revenue of roughly $270. So you're looking at gas sales and also $120 for that customer charge. Like other utilities, the natural gas system is largely fixed and relatively small variable cost. So any incremental value really goes a long way to being able to offset some of those fixed costs. And in FY20 and 21, the natural gas system contributed just over $2.4 million to the GFT. And so, again, we don't calculate the GFT because I get a lot of questions on this. We don't calculate the GFT on a per customer basis. It's really a top-down approach. Each system gets a percentage of overall allotment to pay towards the GFT based on revenues and so forth for that year. And so if you ask me what it was or try to do the math per customer, we don't calculate it that way. We don't look at data that way. It's strictly a top-down approach and percentage per system based on revenues. Okay, let me take a quick sip here. So looking at future of natural gas supplies, how will the makeup of natural gas change? And obviously there are blends and different types of gas that are being tested, right? There's renewable natural gas, or RNG, which is a product derived from natural decomposition of organic materials. So the city of Gainesville and GRU recently were awarded a grant, and they're working with NREL, the National Renewable Energies Lab, for technical assistance and also monetary assistance to do feasibility studies of using organic waste to create renewable natural gas. Part of that study is obviously how much, volume wise, and then what's the best use of that natural gas. Is it better to use some of that natural gas in generation to offset, or use it in, say, an LDC system or whatever to get the biggest return as far as renewables go? We have an advantage in the city of Gainesville because we do operate our own wastewater system, or water reclamation facilities. I'll use the right term. And so we do have a source there that is able to produce renewable natural gas. This grant is going to help us study how much is available and what's the best use of it. There's also studies that are going on and pilots that have green hydrogen that's produced by using renewable energy. There is a challenge there that exists, but right now it's a kind of a 3-to-1 ratio. So in other words, I need to use 3 megawatts of renewable energy to make 1 megawatt worth of renewable gas or green hydrogen. And so the economics aren't there right now, but there's a lot of work and pilot programs that are there. And I believe part of the IRA and the government funding is to get that cost closer to 1-to-1. And so we're looking at a lot of those options that come down the road. Will these happen tomorrow? No, these are scalable things. These are things that we have to work the kinks out of and then implement them on an incremental basis to make that happen. But these are options going down the line of some of the things we're considering to offset the holistic carbon impact, or the impact to either health or environment or what have you. We know that lowering our use of fossil fuels contributes to that, whatever that conversion factor is. So these are some of the things that are being considered. One of the things that we're looking at as well is, in the future, we have these other options, or we have these other customers outside of our electric service territory that are connected to our natural gas system. What options do we have in the future? These are a couple of them, but it really rolls down to the philosophy of, if they're connected to GRU system, then we have more control over what kind of gas we feed them. We have more control over how they transition. If we don't have them in our system and they go to propane, or you have another supplier that comes in and starts supplying that natural gas, then we effectively lose control over that opportunity to maximize that. And so those are some of the things that we're considering. Can I put a number on that? Not quite yet, right? Sometimes, even though we're making progress on these other alternatives, it's just getting that down to an actionable number is still at least a few months away from the RNG's perspective for us. We did, however, get approved for a natural gas infrastructure safety and modernization grant program. And again, that's to improve pipeline system reliability. That's to lower a leak rate that's already extremely low. But those are grants that we've applied for and received, and actually working on implementing some of those into our system, replacing some of the older pipe with more stable, less leaky pipes or infrastructure. So what are the impacts of GRU ceases natural gas appliances? Oh, another question.
Question about that. When you presented to us about solar in November,
Mhm.
you stated that GRU does not make plans based on things that were in research, only on things that were currently available. Because we were discussing the research regarding bigger batteries that held more than 2 to 4 hours.
Mhm.
Why can you do that with gas, but not with solar?
Oh, I'm not doing that with gas. If I gave that impression, I'm sorry. What I'm saying is that we're getting a feasibility study and grant from the government to figure out how much we can do and the best use of that. So it could go to say that, hey, we need to burn this renewable natural gas to make power that's going to be the biggest bang and the biggest offset for that. So we're not planning on this. I'm just saying that we are looking at long term, this may be a philosophy that we can use to help transition once these technologies become available and once that volume becomes available. So this is not something that's
Are you
going in.
equally looking at technologies that are coming about solar and solar storage?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are participating in this one for renewable natural gas because we have a water reclamation facility. We have an asset that we have full control over, and we can make the capital investment to change that system to get this RNG. When you look at longer term storage batteries, they are more longer term storage, and they're going to be pilot programs that then scale up, right? What we're saying is that once that technology is scaled up and the kinks are worked out, just like with the RNG, then we'll be factoring those into our plans. This one, nor the long-term storage is factored into our plans right now. We have what's commercially available, and what has been tested and proven is going into our planning going forward. You're muted if you're trying to talk to me.
You didn't mention looking at the research about solar when you did or batteries, when you did your presentation in November about solar, except to say that you don't include it in planning.
Correct. If it's not commercially available at the utility scale, then we don't include it in our current planning. There are different iterations as we're embarking on an IRP now, which those would factor into. That's going to happen this year. So what is commercially available at this point goes into that plan, because we know we can go out, make a phone call, issue a PO, and have a product delivered that meets a spec. These things that are on this screen right now, I can't do that with. And so I can't plan on those. When long-term storage factors in and it gets to that point, the next iteration of the IRP in the next 3 to 4 years will include that. So really the differentiator is, can I call someone, can I issue an RFP, and can they deliver me a product that meets a spec reliable, a technical specification reliably? That's really what we mean by commercially available and what's included in our long-term planning. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I was just wondering why you didn't include future batteries when you did the presentation about solar. It seemed like the solar presentation was about why it was not feasible, rather than putting any future possible options in it. But that's okay. We can move on. We don't have to stay on this subject.
We will. That's a great point. But I think when we go back through the slides that I presented, I think there were a couple of points about as this technology moves, because what I said during that presentation was right now, rice is a viable option. As batteries evolve, then we prefer to switch to batteries once that technology evolves. And so I may not have said the exact words, but the idea is that yes, so we have to do this iterative approach to allow technology to evolve, right? And that's part of it. So if I imply that we weren't looking at that, I apologize. That's simply not true. We are. We did an RFP for long-term storage, or really not an RFP, but request for qualifications or statement of abilities, basically, for long-term storage in the market, just to get an idea of what was out there and what may be commercially available. And the prices were astronomical, and the benefits just weren't stable enough to include in the long-term planning.
Eric, just for a foundation, how long a period do you plan out? Is it 5 years, 3 years? What's your plan?
So
Period.
when you look at generation, we are looking at a 25-year horizon as far as plan and forecast. And we will update that plan every 3 to 4 years. So
Every 3
effectively
to 4.
what we'll get out of this integrated resource plan, we'll look at 25 years of planning of a forecast, right? But we'll probably only take action on the first 1 or 2 of those that we can do in the near term, 3 to 4 years. We'll get those
Okay.
assets in place, then that resets your baseline, right? So then you look from that point out another 25 years, and you include any of this new technology that's becoming available at that point. And so when you look at that, we look at, again, incremental approaches to those. We're not backing up the truck now and trying to sign up for 700 megawatts of solar this year. Just couldn't do it, and it just doesn't make sense long term. And then also it also gets you an incremental approach, and it's also an iterative approach. So there's not one bite at the apple. We'll do this. We'll factor everything into the IRP this year that we can. Again, meeting some of those criteria, and then 3 years from now we'll start that process over again. And so something that's not included this time doesn't mean that it won't be included next time. It just means that commercially available criteria just wasn't there when we did this study.
Okay, where are you now in your current IRP plan? When is the next one?
Great question. We're actually kicking off the process now, and we're starting with the community engagement portion. So we are putting together a stakeholder group, and I'll talk more about this at your meeting on Monday. But basically, we're putting together a group of stakeholders from across the community that represent different groups to come together kind of as an advisory group for the IRP. And what that means is that we'll have representatives from different sectors, from environmental, from large customers, from faith-based organizations, from underrepresented communities and minority groups, just larger groups in general, neighborhood associations in some cases, planning departments or housing departments from the city. I've got a meeting set up in a couple of weeks with the city manager talking about using resources to include in this advisory group. And the idea is really is to go and take a deep dive into the IRP, multiple meetings along the year, to provide input on what our assumptions are and why, what's included, how the feedback from the community impacts the scenarios that we run, costing, all of those. We realize that people don't do IRPs every day, and they don't have an energy sourcing background. And so taking this group of, right now we're thinking 25 to 30 people, and taking them through the process, getting more in-depth information to them and allowing them to give us better feedback and also communicate out to their groups that they're representing. And I'm going to talk to you Monday about a representative from the CCAC being on that advisory committee to be able to, again, continue to engage in these discussions. So that's the community engagement portion of it that's kicking off now. We are starting to get our assumptions together and getting updated pricing on technology that's available, iterations of that, making sure that we've got good solid foundations for that. We're talking about demand side management and the options that are there. We're talking about technology and EV forecasts and how they're implemented, or the forecasted growth rate for those. And so all of those things we're gathering all that information right now. We expect to kick off really the technical portion probably sometime in April. And with the idea of finishing and bringing something back to the commission for approval, either in December of 23 or early 24. So that was a long answer to say we're kicking it off now. It'll take about a year for us to get through it all.
Okay. And that plan, as you mentioned, will be the plan that you implement for like 3 years or so.
Right. We'll look at the things that it's recommending to do, right now, and we'll start tackling those. And then as those projects are off and running or included or what have you, or installed, and then we'll start the process over again in another 3 to 4 years and do the same thing.
Okay. All right. I see Nathan has a question. Go ahead, Nathan.
How's it going? My question was, I guess, twofold. So one is, how are the rebates currently paid for? Like through the GRU's rates or like a different tax program? And then could you reiterate the second question part? Is like, what are the profits you guys make, GRU makes from natural gas installation? I just say that again. I can't remember. Thanks.
Sure. So I think on the current slide, incrementally, we look at about $80,000 of incremental revenue per year. And so that's just the additional revenue that we get from the new connections that come from the rebates. And the source of those rebates, that's a very good question. I'm not sure. I believe it's a budget line item, but I've got to verify that for you. So let me check on that and I can bring you an answer to Monday's meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Eric, we're kind of running on time here, so let's go ahead and go through as much as you can.
I will fly through the rest, and again, you guys we can talk more about this next time on Monday. So this is just how does our rebate level compare to those around the state. You know, there's some areas with no natural gas service, but our rebate is in line or actually some of the lowest around the state when you look at incentives. So here's what's being offered in other areas. So summary, we've talked a lot about a lot of these different things, but so natural gas appliances help with our electrical peak, ultimately reducing capital expenditures, fuel consumption, purchase power costs, and so forth, be able to serve those same BTUs. Holistically, looking at natural gas water heaters and furnaces, emitting less carbon. When we look at electric resistance, and this is through, you know, again, the efficiency of the entire system from generation at a power plant to delivery. Again, as I noted, this will change as our renewable portfolio goes up. But again, that's not happening overnight. Natural gas appliances and high-end heat pumps save customers money over traditional electrical appliances on average. And gas blends featuring renewable blends are on the horizon. And again, to Jackie's question or response, is it something we're planning on right now? No. Are there things that are in the horizon that are coming up that we're watching and participating in? Absolutely. Again, summaries of the things that we've talked to before. You know, I won't read through these for the sake of time, but it's all things that we've talked through before. So this is our recommendation going forward. We expect to bring natural gas rebates to the City Commission probably end of February, early March, and you know, bring that to the City Commission for their consideration. We're focused right now on getting commissioners up to speed on, especially the new commissioners. Okay, well, what do we do day to day kind of thing before we tackle this? The original thought was, well, maybe we take it in January, but there's just not enough time to do that, to get everybody acclimated and have a meaningful discussion about it. So looking at end of February, early March to take that to the commissions, to the City Commission.
Okay. And
so, you know, effectively that's it. That's the role that I have, or the information that I have. And again, I'll end by saying, you know, this slide is going to be unacceptable to this first group of folks that I talked about, that it doesn't matter what information is presented. They're going to say, get rid of natural gas and get rid of it right now. And that's okay. My job is to provide a balanced approach, sustainable approach to planning, and focus on all of those three pillars. And that's what we're trying to do. This is not a simple issue. This is a complex issue. And with all complex issues, you can't make the decision on one factor alone, right? There's got to be honest, straightforward conversations like we're having today to truly resolve the issue and figure out the best approach that is sustainable, right? It has to be balanced going forward, and any hasty decisions will have an impact. If you do it now hastily, it's going to have a long-term impact, and we want to make sure we understand what that means, right? This is not a kick the can down the road. This is not a say we're never going to study this anymore. This is saying, well, look, we have this resolution. We are working towards this resolution. Let us make sure we understand what the implications are before we go and make this decision. We're talking about some intermediate steps maybe, but let's have some time to make sure we understand the decision that we're making. And we may end up in the same spot, right? But let's make sure we understand that before moving forward. So again, I don't expect you to change votes, nominations, what have you. You know, please continue to send the letter to the board. I just wanted to make sure that we have the opportunity to have this discussion, and again, open to continuing it as we go forward.
Well, Eric, we really thank you, and we really appreciate your participation on our committee and with us, and bringing up this information at always. And you know, you do a great job of doing that. I do see a gap in what we're talking about, and just to sum this up a little bit from the feedback that I've gotten from our committee members. You know, we talk about the three leg stool, the environment, the economics, and the people. One of the things we want to also include in the people is the health. And we want to make sure that that health impact, especially when we start talking about appliances, is also considered. That's the gap that I see there, and that should be included in the people's part. As we get to the end, I see Adam has his hand up again, and again, we want to thank you so much for that presentation. Adam?
No, Eric, I appreciate the presentation as well, and want to make sure we get proper clarity on everything and understand y'all's challenges for sure. You know, happy to see you've got the grant to, you know, improve the leakage that's in the system right now. But there are some glaring issues. You know, the stated goal at the end is great, but I am confused on how we're going to get to that goal if you're creating this long-term demand for natural gas. You know, part of that right now, I was going to have you go back a couple slides, but you already pulled them down. You know, you say we're not investing in that yet, we're not planning for that yet, but you've included in this presentation in several places how you think maybe hydrogen mix can improve, you know, reduce the methane mix, right? But yeah, I'm concerned that you're creating this long-term demand for natural gas that won't change as GRU reduces or improves its energy mix. If you go all renewable, the people that are still cooking on natural gas, heating on natural gas, that isn't going to change, I don't think. Those are my concerns, but thank you for the presentation.
Okay. Any other comments to Eric? And as Eric mentioned, we're not doing this to necessarily change people's mind. We want to just make sure that everybody has all the information. And again, we thank you so much, Eric, for doing that for us, because, you know, as you said, everything has to be balanced, but we want to make sure all the inputs are there so that when we look at this three-legged stool, that everything doesn't always have the same value. And we want to make sure that we not only put the items down, but we give it its proper value in that stool.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you again to the group for allowing me to present this information. I know it's contentious for some, but you know, so are a lot of complex issues that we've got to solve, right? So we're here for the discussion. No hard feelings, none of that is there, but we are here for the discussion and making sure that we're having that conversation. And I just want to make sure that you do understand from the utility standpoint that GRU is not against renewables. We're not saying that we have to plan on natural gas indefinitely in the future. We're not saying that, natural gas is the only way to go and that's it, right? And we don't want to imply that we are anti-solar, pro-natural gas, and if it doesn't meet those criteria, then we're not considering it. By all means, if you hear some of the discussions and everything that goes on in these hallways, there is no option that is off the table, right? There is no option that is off the table. We understand the implications of all this to our customers as well. But we're looking at it from all of those standpoints of that is it has to be balanced. It has to do that. And the discussion of the factors and how much they're weighted, John, that's a great point. And that's something, again, we can discuss about how much we weight those things. But to make it on a singular issue and look at the community as a whole, because one thing that's going to be great and going to 100% renewable, in the next 5 years, okay, that's great from an environmental standpoint, but from a cost standpoint and the impact of some in the community, that's untenable. They can't afford it. And so, again, I see that as my job to look at that balance of what we're doing, why. And again, if I imply that there are options we aren't considering, it was purely by oversight. We are considering everything that's out there and having those discussions with industry experts and having those conversations along with these that we're having. So again, thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. And I just want to preface this a little bit. The options that are out there are always based on your current situation, where you are, how much gas generation you have. So those options can't be outside of your current situation.
They can't be negligent of my current situation. Correct. Right. Correct.
Okay. Any other closing comments? All right. Again, Eric, thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it back over to Steve. And Steve, any closing things we need to do?
No, I think that's it. We have our meeting next Monday, so we can follow up on a discussion on this topic, Eric, and thanks for presenting. And we can also, hopefully make a decision on the prior presentation as well and get everyone's feedback on that. So I don't have any other items. I don't think there's any citizens left in the room. I think there's just staff. So at this time, I can, if it's okay with everyone else, I can stop the recording. Any objections to the end of the meeting?
No.
I just have one question for, I guess, Stephen and John. So the letter has not moved forward. Was that just to have this presentation, and what happened on the back end? I thought we already approved.
So the letter is ready to go, and John has reviewed it. He's comfortable with what it has. I think it met the intent of what the committee wanted in the letter, and it will go out this week. We knew the city was not presenting this item in January. We got confirmation from Eric and others that wasn't being discussed. So we knew there wasn't an issue with it going last week or this week, but it will go out. The motion was to get it out before our next meeting. So our intent is to send it out today or tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.